Hello, everybody, and happy Easter to the one who celebrated yesterday or are still celebrating today. We had holidays here in Germany, but that is not an excuse not to release a new podcast. So here we go, number 48 with Jonathan Formento. Jonathan is a Brazilian designer, BMX passionate, and his story is the story of the successful college dropout. He was studying at university in Brazil and he decided to leave earlier so he can boost his working experience, working career. He worked first in Brazil, then he moved to the UK where he worked for different creative agencies. And after a few years of experience during the first wave of these pandemics, he decided now is the time to go solo, start my own thing. And it's if you wait for the perfect moment, it will never come. So he started his freelancing career with some project that he was already receiving from friends, and he's doing great. He's doing good. It's now 1 year of experience as a small business or a small freelancer. So I think this conversation will give you the right boost and the right courage to start working on your own solo project if you haven't started yet. But before we start the conversation, I want to thank you very, very much because last week we have hit almost 40 subscriptions to our newsletter. We have more than 500 followers on Instagram and more than 800 followers on LinkedIn. So I want to tell you that it's a big pleasure that you're liking our show. We hit 6K downloads in our history. And the episode 47 was the most listened of all time with more than 300 downloads. So it was perfect. It was very nice. Thank you. Without all of you, these achievements wouldn't be possible and wouldn't be happening. So thank you very much and keep supporting us. And if you're listening this for the first time or you haven't started supporting us yet, you can do that for free. You can just... If you're listening this podcast on a platform where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you can give a rate, give a good rate. And and if you haven't subscribed to our monthly newsletter, you can do that now too. You can follow our social media, which are Instagram at TCI Podcast and the LinkedIn page, The Creative Insider. And if you have friends that you might enjoy this, just share with them. So thank you very much. And enjoy the conversation.
World stops just like that. The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, Jonathan. Welcome to the Creative Insider Podcast. For
Hello.
the second try, the first recording got a little fucked up, and we needed to start over again. But it's going to be a little cringe, but it is what it is. Sometimes technical
Okay.
mistakes happens. Actually, it's good that we're starting over because I was messing with some USB cables here, and I think my little, mixer picked them up. So welcome to the Creative Insider. As I was telling you before, I found you through Fabio Palvelli, who's also was on the
Yes.
on the podcast. Fabio is this mystical figure. He's
He is.
everything in the design world. He's a YouTuber. He's a conference organizer. He's a designer, teacher. Everything. Also very interesting podcast. And he did this video about talented artists that don't have that much followership, I guess he said, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm one of the followers you acquired through him.
Yes.
And I decided to get in touch and talk to you personally for the first time now. So you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Well, it's a pleasure because I saw some of the people that I admire so much in your podcast before, so this was quite special. And thank you to Fabio for doing that video, which was also really nice. He actually texted me the day before and said, "Hey, I'm doing this video tomorrow. I think you should have a look. And I was like, "Oh, that's nice." And then you got in touch. So all of it's amazing. So yeah, my name is Jonathan Formento, for people who don't really know me. I come from Brazil originally, from a very small town in southern Brazil called Blumenau, very German. Um, and now I live in the UK. I've been living here for the past 7 years, working with various different companies, architects, brands, designers, fashion designers, all kinds. Yeah, and that's kind of it, basically.
So are you? Do you have some German roots, or sort of
uh,
Brazilian, just born in that little town?
Well,
That
to be quite honest, like myself, not really, but my wife's family, they were, well, her mom's side, they were all raised only speaking German, for instance, in in our small town. Like, it's honestly, it's crazy, man. If you go down there, it's you see all the buildings, like the Bavarian sort of architecture and stuff. And you feel like, oh, is that actually? Is this Brazil? Kind of thing, in some areas of the town, and to this day, some areas they only speak German, and obviously, you got the dialects and the language change, throughout time. But no, I personally don't. I think my sort of heritage is more Italian, as far as I don't really know, to be quite honest. But
Yeah, actually, your last name is quite Italian.
yeah, probably is.
I hope your town that you were born in, it's not like the one in Chile. It's called Colonial Dignitad. I don't know if you have ever heard about
I
this
have
town.
no.
They built very Bavarian style town in Chile, in the mountains, which in a region which looks very much like Bavaria, but
Yeah.
the German guys who moved there were the bad guys from the Second World War, and they're still, I think, there. And like, if you go in that town, it's pretty normal to see like swastikas and to see like
Oh yeah.
symbols like that. And then when they settled down there, they did some, they gathered information about the governments. So like, nobody can mess up with them because they have dirty information about everybody.
Oh
Like,
my god.
so it was when I saw like this documentary, and they did also a movie with Emma. What is called Hermione in Harry Potter? Emma something.
Emma Watson.
Emma Watson. Yeah,
Yeah.
she did a movie about. It's
Oh
called
wow.
Colonial Dignidad. I did. So it's
That's
funny when.
crazy. But
Yeah.
to be quite honest, Georgia, like a lot of southern Brazil, Argentina particularly, it's heavily German colonized, because these people, as far as I know, they run away from the war, to basically create new lives down there, kind of thing. Yeah, it is quite interesting. The whole swastika thing, like, that happens in our state as well, in Brazil. So,
Yeah. Well, you have the guy Bolsonaro. He's pretty hardcore, I think.
yeah, that's a bit mental. I don't really pay much attention, to his stuff, but as far as I know, he is a bit crazy.
But I think you're that long in the UK that you picked the local accent. Now you sound. I
Well,
was expecting more like a Brazilian accent, but it's very much UK.
I think when I moved to Liverpool, I was like, okay, so I learned English because I lived in Dublin in 2011. There was a lot of Brazilians that go to Dublin to learn English, and when I moved to Liverpool, I was like, oh, okay, no, yeah, I learned, I know English. So when I got there and I met people from Liverpool, I was like, oh, there's a whole new level of English going on here that I need to learn quite quickly, because otherwise I'll be in trouble. So so yeah, I think I got a little bit of that Scouse sort of accent.
I think I have mentioned that already sometimes on the podcast, that when I came here in Germany, I came as Erasmus student. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's a European program. And back in the days, the UK was also part of the EU.
Oh, yeah, true that.
So there were some students from Manchester, and we were once in a bus, me, the Manchester guys, and the one guy from Wisconsin. He's American, and one of the Manchester guy was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand. So he repeated a couple of times. I couldn't get it, and I go to my American man, said like, Nick, what the hell is he saying? And he's like, I don't know either. Like, no, I don't understand. That's
so true.
not English. So yeah, but how? So you were born in Brazil, and
Yes.
was there, like, you are a designer, so as far as I know, you're not an architect, you're a designer. Was there a moment in your life where you thought, okay, I want to do something with design and be in that industry or do this professionally?
Well, to be quite honest, Georgie, like I'm not an architect nor a designer. To be fairly honest with you, like I never graduated from university or anything. I did a technician course as an interior designer in Brazil, but the whole passion and the whole intention to work in the field started quite early. When I was like 9 or 10, my dad used to draw everything that he wanted to build in the house, and everything that he drew, you'd be in perspective, and I'll be like, oh, how can you do that? How can you make the drawing pop out of the paper and stuff? So he taught me how to do that, and he was like, oh, you know what, you can be an architect when you older, and if you have the interest for that. So that started quite early. I was like 19. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an architect. That's it. But then everything happened in life, and I really thought I was going to be an architect, but there's so many other things that happened. So I started riding BMX, for instance, and that opened up a whole new world for me in graphic design and photography and stuff. But that's how I, developed the passion for the field per se. So yeah, so that's kind of it. And then when I was 14, 15, because back home you either start early or you kind of fucked in a way, to get to life. And my dad, family in general, they always had this pressure on me, like, hey, you got to get this going, got to know what you want to do, blah, blah, blah. So when I was 14, 15, I joined this course and discovered CGI, people doing like photorealistic renders. This was, I don't know, 2006, 7 or something. And then I realized, oh, this is exciting. So I really wanted to do that. So I did all these courses and stuff just to learn, how to do that kind of thing more than designing things, if you know what I mean. But that's kind of it. Yeah.
So you're more a practical guy. You were like, I want
Yeah.
to get to know how to do these things. Yeah, I'm like something like that too. But my family was also like very, they were very kind of like guiding me
Yeah.
towards like what I'm gonna do because they're immigrants from Bulgaria to Italy, so they were like, they knew the importance of
Yeah.
me getting educated, not to work some sort of lower end job.
Yeah.
Like this is the goal of every parent that emigrates. They want their kids to like a little bit push them up
Oh, definitely.
one level further. And I decided to study architecture for the simple fact that design in general, you produce something, the result of your work is something that you physically can see or touch. It's a video or image or even a building. So it's not a field where you can come very further with just connections, because
Mhm.
or just because somebody placed you in that spot because you're the son or the what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you really need to have some skills. Like people with skills are needed no matter
Yeah.
what, because in the end of the day things needs to get done. So it's good. And at what point did you consider like coming to? You said first you were in Ireland and then
Yeah.
later. So how did that happen? Because I
Yeah.
guess coming from Brazil, you need visas and stuff like that.
Oh man. Yeah. So the whole thing kind of started when I got my first job. I was chatting to the owner of the building, quite well-known, wealthy guy back in town, and he was like, "How old are you?" I think I was like 15 or something. And I was like, "Well, I'm 15 or something. What do you want to do? I want to do architecture." And he was like, "Nah, man, you should go travel the world and then decide what you want to do." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that time I was riding BMX already. So fast forward 2 years, I think end of 2009, 2010, yeah. Myself and my best friend decided to. We got this idea of like, hey, how would it be, to ride BMX in, Canada or in the state, because we were all fascinated by the landscapes, right? They got beautiful skate parks and street spots and stuff like that, and we saved up for about a year and a half, and we really wanted to go to Canada. It was like that was a mission, and then when we we came to costs to go live abroad and visa costs, we were like, holy shit, that's not going to happen. And then these people start to say like, hey, have you heard of Ireland, Dublin? And I was like, no, I didn't really know, to be honest. I was like, yeah, there's a whole Brazilian community in there that it makes easy for Brazilians to get a visa to study English and to work as well. And we're like, well, we worked for a year and a half, saved up this money. Let's get to Ireland. So that's how the whole idea developed. We really wanted to experience something different, but that was more related to be fairly honest, to BMX than anything else. Georgi, still hear me?
Right. Yeah, you just stopped for a second, so I got the point where you got to Ireland, and what I wanted to ask you is, like you said, you were riding BMX, and that somehow also somehow guided you also towards design. Was that because also this word is all connected to the urban street art, urban culture, that side of it, or how that? Because BMX, it's not really like design.
I know.
It seems to me like crashed bonds and.
Well, it is a lot of that, to be quite honest. But like the whole thing is not like, and I do understand what you mean, like the urban fabric and all that kind of stuff that involves architecture and riding these spots. It was more about photography inside BMX and graphic design. That the brands back in the day, they're doing just beautiful stuff, and the photography and the cinematography that was involved in in the videos and in the whole catalogs and stuff like that was really, really inspired. These people doing really stunning work. So I always got driven into that visual side of things more than the, I don't know how to say, the conceptual side of cities and landscapes and stuff like that. Because to be quite honest, if you think about it, like these people like building these incredible buildings for people to go skate on it and ride bikes on it, which is a bit controversial if you think about it. But at the same time, it's influenced the whole thing, right? Like, I think I heard someone from, they call OMA. They posted like how, what books the architects in the firm were reading. And there was this book like Skateboarding and City. And I was like, oh yeah, that's totally related, because these guys, they experience the city, in a way that other people, they don't, So for someone who comes from that background going into architecture or something, it makes sense in a way. But yeah, that's how I got it inspired by it. It was literally the visual stuff that I was seeing coming out, particularly the photography.
Yeah, I don't remember now, because back when there was no pandemic and we could gather together, I would we have a small group of friends here in Frankfurt, and we would do some architectural movie night. And we found one movie which was about Copenhagen, I think, or Danish architecture, but experienced through parkour guys, so they would do parkour.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's also was something like this to show how these urban athletes experience the different buildings. But also what you say is also like when you, for example, I haven't practiced never like BMX, but for maybe a month in one summer when I was a teenager, I did skateboarding. But of course, it's not the best sport for me because I'm pretty tall, so I tend to fall easily. But also these videos that you can see now on YouTube more and more, or the magazines, the way they show the whole thing.
It's so wonderful.
So also for for someone who doesn't practice it. And I say that, like, for example, a lot of the people which I invite on the podcast, the first thing they is like, I'm not sure if my story is interesting enough to know to tell it in 2 hours or 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I always make this example, like one of the most viewed show on Netflix. It's Chef's Table, and it's literally
That's amazing. Yeah.
people cooking, but the whole thing is about the whole lighting,
The story, right?
the music, and
Yeah.
then they have this douchey American critiques, which are like, "Oh, I went to this restaurant," and so they
Yeah.
combine this thing. And if you do a stupid video about this stuff, it's just a guy cooking. It's nothing like if you think about it, it's nothing that special. Just and
Yeah.
I think this is something very nice to storytelling, filmography, photography. You can
Oh,
do
yeah.
so much with one image or with just lighting and music.
And Chef's Table is a great example for that, right? Because what those guys did with the cinematography of the whole thing is just brilliant. They make the food look like sculptures, which is incredible.
Yes, yes. And I saw other videos from, for example, one of the because I think the first episode was with Stefano Bottura, which is an Italian chef.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I saw other videos from other TV shows which went to visit his kitchen and to visit him. And it's pretty much like a working day, a chef in the kitchen, and how they did the whole story was amazing. And
That's the guy from the I dropped the lemon tart thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Actually,
brilliant.
Fabio went to his restaurant. I was like,
oh really?
Yeah. He said because he posted a picture with him, and I was like, dude, how did you? Because
No way.
if you go on the website, you have to really like go and see. Okay, they tell you like next next availability gonna be released on February or like 3 months in advance. And I guess that now with the pandemics, when everything it's not, I think in Italy it's not completely locked down, but almost it's even harder. So I saw a picture in summer. He said it's a one time, like one time in the life experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so you decided to go to Ireland. Obviously you managed to go there.
Yes.
So when you went there, did you speak any English or you didn't speak any English?
Oh man, when I got there, I thought I could speak English.
And what made you think that Irish people speak English?
I just had to be quite honest, like just to my own ignorance, I just didn't know. I thought they spoke Irish, which some people in the I think in the West Coast they speak more Irish or something. They've got all the sort of signs and stuff on the street in Irish and in English. So I don't know. I just didn't know. But then when people say, "Hey, you can go to Ireland," okay, they speak English, fantastic. So when I got there, I had what I call the video game English. So you play video games when you're a kid, so you learn a word or two here and there. And to be fairly honest, like I used to be good in English at school because the music, the generation I grew up in, like it's the sort of I don't know, pop punk, punk rock kind of thing. And if you wanted to understand those guys doing, you had to learn a little bit here and there. So when I got there, I knew this essential basic English, left and right, 1, 2, 3, all that kind of stuff. But then it was a whole transition to becoming more, proficient in English in general. And I remember very clearly, it was funny, I was thinking about that the other day, how I lost job opportunities because I didn't speak English very well. So I had an interview with this guy. He saw my portfolio because there was some CGI going on, for instance. And when he called me in the interview, I just wanted to use this new word I learned, which was eventually. And in my head, eventually meant, actually right now, at this moment. And he was like, "Oh yeah, so 3D, right? No, so you wanted the 3D work?" And I was like, "Yeah, eventually." And I was like, and then I got home, like, in 2 days later, I was like, "God, this guy really liked my portfolio. Why hasn't he not called or something?" And then that clicked. I was like, eventually. That doesn't mean what I actually thought it meant in a way. And that was my bad experience with learning a new language. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. And the good thing was like, I got very, different jobs. So I was working as a kitchen porter, for instance, and I work in a kitchen. That's quite funny. We're just talking about Chef's Table. Definitely not what I was doing. And, just on that experience, you learn so much because the chefs, they go like, "Hey, you need to do this very quickly. You need to do, this and that. And they were like pointing out to, that is what that word is. So go get it or whatever. And I also lived in a house where I think 3 of our housemates, they were French. So you would be speaking, English all the time. And we had this thing where there was like 2-3 other Brazilians living with us. If you spoke Portuguese in the house, you had to pay like €1 or something like that. I think in a week we got like, I don't know, €150 or something like that, because everyone was like cursing in Portuguese or like talking to someone, like, slipping basically here and there. But that's it. Like, and then when I got back, I had a good grasp of English, to be honest, and which was good. But yeah, that was roughly the experience.
When you got back, where?
To Brazil. Sorry.
Oh, how long did you stay in?
So I stayed in Ireland for, gosh, I don't remember, 10 months. I think when you got to the month 8th, I realized, this was after recession, by the way. This was literally 2011 till 2008. We had the crisis, the economic crisis. And then 2011, Ireland was just starting to recover. And by the 7th month, I realized, okay, things are not going to work well, blah, blah, blah. So I started to prepare to go home. And on the 10th month, I decided to go back. So I moved to Ireland in May 2011 and got back to Brazil February 2012. So yeah, 9 months, something. I don't know.
Before you went there in Brazil, did you work? Because you said you work a year to have some savings before going to Ireland. Did you started after this class you did that's around in the CGI industry? Did you worked in Brazil already as a CGI artist? And
yeah. So I worked before going to Ireland, I was working in a booth design company. So we did design for for booths for like trade fairs and stuff like that. Where I was designing and doing the visualization for them, because they wanted it both. And so yeah, I worked there for like, a year and a half, 2 years almost. And prior to that, I was working in different interior design companies. The first one that I got was a company doing corporate interiors for like, big offices and stuff like that. And then I moved to an interior design company before joining this booth design, to be fairly honest. So the whole journey, I think, started, I don't remember, to be fairly honest. I think it was like 2007, 2008 or 2006. Which was just all different, good experiences. Some of them I hold very dearly to this day. Like the first job that I had, I'm good friends with them, to this day. So it's a bit of a funny story, because I was doing my interior design technician course, and these guys are high, and I really wanted a job. Because I was young, right? So what I wanted to do was like get a job to buy parts for my BMX, to be fairly honest. So I got this. I went to deliver a CV and a portfolio for these guys, and they were like, "Oh, you're doing interior design?" I was like, "Yeah, it's technician." And they were like, "Do you know AutoCAD?" And I was like, "Not really. I know how to draw, plans and stuff." This was 2007. You needed to know AutoCAD, and I was like, "Sorry, man, we can't do it." Funny thing, the guy who was doing the interview rode BMX. Which was crazy. Like, "Oh, do you know this guy?" I was like, "Yeah, he's the best." And he was like, "Oh my God, I'm a good friend, blah, blah, but sorry, I can't get you the job." And on that weekend, there was an AutoCAD course going on in town for like a weekend. It started on Saturday at 7:30 in the morning, finished at 10 o'clock in the evening, and Sunday. So man, it was amazing. Like I wanted the job, and same thing happened. I did the course in the weekend. I went a week later, delivered another CV, and he was like, "Oh, do you remember me?" And he was, "Yeah, you here last week." And he was like, "Well, you don't know AutoCAD?" I was like, "Dude, I just learned over the weekend. Can you get me the job now, please?" And that whole thing started, snowballing afterwards. Like, "Oh, hey, now you know these people, you can go work for them," and things like that, which led me to eventually this booth design company. So,
and but that's what did you know before you knew AutoCAD? Like which software you were?
I knew Photoshop. I knew, the graphic design basics.
Graphic
I think,
design.
Yeah,
not like computer 3D modeling.
yeah, no architectural softwares at all.
Okay.
I knew how to draw by hand. I like technical drawings because you learn in the technician course, right? That's what the
Yeah.
technician they did that was for put you in the market, but they didn't teach you AutoCAD, so I did that on the side kind of thing. So the only softwares that I knew was like Photoshop, which was kind of good at it. And CorelDRAW. People use CorelDRAW quite a lot back in the day.
I know that software because I have a friend which was doing graphic design with some, I think her uncle or something like that, and then you can do these very nice illustrations in that
Yeah,
software.
I think Illustrator wasn't that famous back in the day, and this was like the other software people use.
Yeah, but AutoCAD is pretty easy. I think that these guys should have given you the job because, of course, it's something that you can start using in a couple of days for sure.
Well, when you're 14, 15, they probably
I mean, like we started with I studied in a school of arts
Oh wow, okay.
in Rome, and in the school of arts in Rome, you have like the first 2 years, all the students
Uh-huh.
do the same things, and you do painting. We did a little bit of sculpture with like the whole a little bit of sculpture. You could do in 1 year one small statue or something out of um, what is called the earthy material.
Oh, like
Uh,
clay, right?
clay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't have this word in my head now. Um, and after you have done this and then we had geometrical drawings, like technical drawings. And then after the second year, you could pick like the last 3 years. You could get more specific on something, and then I
Mhm.
decided already to do it was called architecture and interior design, something like that. So we started using AutoCAD and Rhino.
Oh yeah.
And I think as someone I was 15 in 1 year, I could use AutoCAD. It was
That's
pretty
good.
easy. And then Rhino also was basically the same thing. So so I think, but what I'm wondering is like you were going for these jobs when you were very young. It's amazing that you managed to get a job like
Oh man, yeah,
as a graphic designer or a designer when you were 16, 17
yeah.
without any education basically, because like
And
unofficially.
it's I look back now, and this year I've been looking back on my life. I'm turning 30 this year, and I've been looking. I was like, holy shit, what happened the past 15 years? And truth be told, like I should have got those jobs when I was like the age that I am right now, because I'm much more like, oh man, I was designing like huge things, like these booths, they were like, some of them like 7-8 meters high, and like the structure that went behind it. I didn't give a shit back in the day. I wanted to do beautiful pictures, get out, 5 o'clock, get out work and go home and ride bikes. I was just lucky because 3D gave me the opportunity. They're like, oh, you can do renders now. Well, we need you here. So I was lucky, man. Honestly, I think again, this first job was literally BMX. The guy, he liked BMX. I think he liked the sort of attitude of like, hey, you did an interview, you didn't get a job, and then a week later you show up again. Hey, I know this thing now. Can you give me the job? He's like, oh yeah, you hired. So I think I was kind of lucky on that sense. But looking back, if I was a bit older, I'll probably be a little bit more mature to like actually have a perspective of what I was doing, and probably would have done a better job. But that was 15 years ago. So
What is the culture in Brazil like? Because I mean, here in Europe, if I were in Italy with 15-year-old guy and go to some office for interior architecture and tell them, hey, I want to work here and all this and that, they would tell me like, dude, like please, we can hire you as an intern for free and you can just
yeah.
learn a little bit.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Like I was. If I was getting paid, I was getting paid as an intern. There wasn't like any, hey, you got a job with this age as a designer. No, it wasn't like that, man. But sorry, I just interrupted you.
No, that's fine. That was the question, but because in Italy, it wouldn't have been paid at all, like
Hmm.
zero. They would tell you need to just gather experience first. So that would have been definitely weird. Um, and So at what point when you started this job, you discovered also 3D modeling and the other softwares that you use, I guess, also now?
Yeah, yeah. So the whole thing started with AutoCAD, right? And AutoCAD was doing 3D already. This was I think 2006, AutoCAD 2006 or something like that, 2004. They had 3D already. So I started with that one. Uh, and then I realized, well, to get to that quality that I was seeing on the websites and stuff, I needed to know 3D Studio Max. And funny enough, a few years back, a friend of mine gave me a pirate copy of 3D Studio Max, and he was like, "Hey, dude, you want to do some skate parks and stuff in 3D? There you go." That was because that was quite common in Brazil. Don't get me wrong, dude. Like the whole pirate thing. Uh, so yeah, so that kind of happened, and then when I realized to get the photorealistic looks that I was seeing online, I needed to learn 3D Studio Max in V-Ray, which there wasn't many people teaching back in the day in town. Again, coming from a small town, that didn't really happen. I did like 2 courses in town that they taught you how to do that, but then I went to study at Méliès, which was a cinema school in Sao Paulo, actually. But that was 2010 already. So I knew a little bit of the basics of all these softwares. But to get to the next level, I went to study there in this cinema school for, I think it was like a month or something. Yeah, so that I hope that kind of answers.
Yeah. No, I'm listening. And so you how far away did you live from São Paulo? You said you went.
I think my town is like 800 kilometers, 900, 800. It's like 8 hours on a bus.
Yeah, which in Brazil is probably very close. And
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
how did you finance these studies and this further education through your
Well, I had a little bit of money that my parents didn't let me spend on bike parts, and then my dad was always very like. Don't get me wrong, like we come from working class families, minimum wage kind of thing, but they were always very good at like saving and investing and studying and things like that. So actually, my dad went with me to Sao Paulo the first week because that was the first week that I've ever left the state in a way. And he was like, "Hey, I know there quite well, so let me stay with you." Like, I think he stayed like a couple of days, something, showing me around. Like, that's how you get around, which was amazing. But that's kind of how it happened. And don't get me wrong, like sometimes I did an After Effects course once. Same thing again. Just doing the weekend, there was a course in town, and I was like, I really want to learn this thing, but I don't have the money. And they would go like, "Dude, I'll always help you with studying, with courses and shit like that." So he was like, "Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Yes." "Okay, that's fine. We'll find a way." And then that was it was a bit of, like a bank, like, "Hey, I'll pay this up front, and then you pay me this thing, like, spread out the cost the next 12 months and stuff like that." But yeah, that's how I financed it.
Yeah, that's really smart because I've had like very talented classmates in this school I mentioned, and after we were finishing the school, we had some very talented people, and
Mm-hmm.
way more talented than I was or some of my other classmates, and we were like. I was sure I'm gonna go and try to join, the University of Architecture
Yeah.
because that was my goal, and I needed to do this test to get to access the university. And then
Yes.
these people would tell me like, "No, dude, I'm not gonna do it because although I'm talented, like
You can
um,
afford it, right?
it's too expensive." But then you would see like they had like iPhones. They would go like for holidays in Croatia or whatever,
Different
and
priorities, right?
yeah, and I was
Yeah.
coming from a family which literally like sometimes we had enough money to barely enough money to go through the month, but my dad would always be like, if it's about your education, you don't save money on that, because this is what
Yeah.
it's gonna. But of course, and that's also when you're in a situation like that where you literally give all your money you have to get educated, put you
Yeah.
in check. You're like, I'm not
Oh,
gonna screw
absolutely.
this up. Because and my parents were very clear when I started university. They were like, we gonna finance you like for 5 years, and
Yeah.
um if you don't manage to finish in 5 years, then you need to figure something out. And the funny thing is that it took me 7, but they financed only 3, because after the third year, I started working. So
That's
I
good.
paid, I paid most of it. But yeah, it's I think that's very important lesson, like for people to really put priorities, because we
Oh,
tend to use
absolutely.
short term things. Having an iPhone. 3 months later, they release
Oh,
a new
yeah.
one, and you're like, I hate this shit. I don't want it anymore. But when you learn skills like that, you're gonna
It's
have
for life, right?
yeah, and you're gonna make a lot of money to buy a lot of other things, a
Yeah.
lot of bicycle parts now. You can maybe you can afford.
Honestly, it's quite crazy because when you mentioned that, when we hit 2008, that's when I finally graduated from high school. The whole "I'll invest in your future" thing, sort of thing for me changed, because that was the crisis, right? That was the economic thing. So my dad lost his job back home. Uh, we had a flood in town that the whole town was like underwater, man. It was insane. So my family, they lived in the sort of hills, not like favela, but like in sort of hills, Uh, and I think 3 or 4 of my uncles, they lost their houses because everything just went sliding down. So, dude, everyone was fucked on that time. And I did the test after high school to go study architecture. I passed it, and I was like, this is so unfair. You're going to spend that amount of money. I don't even trust university that much, to be fairly honest. And I told my dad, and my bike got stolen, dude. It was annoying. And I was like, I'm not doing this. So that was, when you kind of draw the line, like, look, we're not going to go through this struggle just so I can get a degree in architecture and maybe be an architect. I don't even know if that's what I'm going to end up doing. That's when I sort of said, like, let's just not do this. You gave me V-Ray, you gave me 3D Studio Max, you gave me After Effects. I don't need this right now. It's all good. So it turned out well. So that's when you draw the line.
Yeah, also with someone that had already some working experience, you had
Exactly.
the knowledge to say that. Because I had similar. This is why I came to Germany, because I was in my third year of university and I didn't see any perspectives in Italy to be successful somehow, to invest all this time and then end up working a regular job, like all my friends which were maybe
Yeah.
already working without a degree. I was like, I really need to give it a try with Germany, because it's economically more advanced. I can
Sure.
go there and at least make some connections,
Yeah.
and then actually after 4 months I was working, although my German was super, like, if English is hard to learn, man, German
Oh,
is,
man, I can imagine.
because you don't. I had already, I knew English, I knew Bulgarian and Italian, but German is a completely different thing, and like, it was very hard, because all the words I couldn't even remember them, because I couldn't connect them to anything. Like, they were completely new words, new sound.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was a similar moment, and it worked out, and now I finished architecture and I'm working in the field. But could have been, as you said, like, yeah, fuck it, I don't think this is useful, just to spend money and time on it.
So expensive as well, right? University usually is quite expensive.
I mean, in Italy, so in Germany, it's basically for free. You pay like 400 euros a semester, and you pay 50 to the university, and 350, it's more like, it's called a student ticket for
Hmm.
like transportation. And
That's pretty
in
good.
Italy, it's different. It's scalable. It means, like, if you're a rich person, you'll pay more. If you're like not, it's depending on your like tax returns,
Right.
So, for example, you study the same thing, but if I'm like poor and you're rich, you'll pay more, I'll pay less. But
Okay.
it's I think in Europe we're very lucky with things, which it's like in the US is crazy, and I don't know how it is in Brazil. Is it expensive?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was really expensive, to be fairly honest. Architecture was incredibly expensive, I found, at least. And then when I did product design, which I only did for like a year or something, it was also expensive. But then you had it's not a scholarship, but like it's like a finance way of you pay. I think I was paying half of it monthly, and then the rest of it would come after I graduated, sort of thing, which I never did. But when it came, the bill was big already. I was like, holy shit, is that for a year and a half at uni? So it is quite expensive. You can go to they call like the public universities, but to pass to get into one of them, it's insane, which is quite controversial, right? Because the people who went to private schools back home, they usually get into the public free universities afterwards, because they were so well educated prior that they could pass the tests. So yeah. To sum it up, it is expensive.
But in which university did you apply and did you got?
I only studied in the university that we had in Sao. It's called FURB. But yeah, I only studied. I think there was like 2-3 universities back in the day, maybe a couple more. But that was the one that I did, and only for like a year and a half or something, which is brilliant in a way, because a couple of friends that went to uni there, a couple of my really good friends, they did do well, actually. One of them, this guy who lived with me in Ireland, my best friend who came with me, he went on to work at UN Studio afterwards, in the Netherlands. Another one is in Spain, doing incredibly well. So. And they graduated, so probably the university was good at the end for them.
The one that's doing incredibly well in Spain is the most impressive, because Spain is as Italy. Like I always admire successful people, and this like I don't want to say like, for example, educational wise, Italy and Spain are very high level, but it's really a struggle. You have to grind, and.
I think Georgi, he is probably working for international companies there.
Maybe, don't know, but it's you have to be. I don't, I have my parents in Italy, but a part of that, I have friends, of course, but I've never been so much connected to a place, and I'm like, I've had also a little bit of hardship through life, being from an immigrant family, and there was a time where my mom was living in Bulgaria. I was with my dad, my brother was with her, and I was like, oh my god, this whole life is such a struggle. Fuck it, I'm just gonna go where it's easier to get a job without having to struggle so much. It's just.
Do you go? Sorry to interrupt again.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking about this the other day. Do you have that sort of, I call it not immigrant sort of mind? Everything seems to be a struggle, and I feel like sometimes we put ourselves in a position that we shouldn't put ourselves in terms of, the immigrant life. Like the way you see the world makes things more difficult, because it seems like always is a struggle. And sometimes I feel like that does affect me. I feel like, hey, you got here, you got to this stage, and you should be just appreciating what you have right now and the good things that are happening to you, and try not to take it easy, but take a lighter sort of look on things. Do you have that, or do you usually go, I'm an immigrant, I need to make this happen, blah, blah, blah? You go hard on it. How do you take that?
I mean, I don't know. For example, this move I did to come to Germany, I don't see it really as an immigration move, because I remember like when I was a kid, to get to Italy back in the days, Bulgaria wasn't part of the EU.
Mm,
So my dad went illegally to Italy, and he
okay.
stayed there 2 years as an illegal immigrant. And then in Italy, they don't have a real regulation for immigration. Basically, it's impossible to get in a normal way. And after 2 years he was there, they did a law that said, okay, now all the illegal immigrants that are inside the country, they can go there, apply for getting legal, to getting like a permit
Yeah.
of living. And then he did that, and I basically didn't see my father for, I think, a couple of years. I saw him maybe only during holidays, and that was in the late 90s. So we didn't have internet, we didn't have the connections we have now. So I would have a call with him like 2 minutes literally a week, because he would call us from a public telephone.
Oh,
We were
yeah, it's very different.
and I remember when I finally got to Italy with my mom, we, all regular with the visa and everything. I was so happy, and it felt to me like such a struggle. Like I finally, we got reconnected. And then now, 15 or 20 years later, when I moved in 2015, I just came here and say, hi, I'm here, and needed to
Yeah.
just because I don't know, I'm that generation that I feel like European. I think Germany, it's Europe. I didn't need to do anything I'm allowed to stay here as long as I want. And yeah, I feel like I just moved to another place where it's just,
Mm,
different. It's like easier in a sense. But I never have, for example, when I was a kid, I don't know if is that what you meant, like we had the feeling, okay, we're not Italians, we're not like the same level, so we need to work harder, we need to push harder.
that's exactly what I meant. Yeah.
But now I don't. I'm grinding in a different kind of field, and I never have thought, okay, I'm a Bulgarian or I'm an Italian, and they're not gonna let me succeed here because I'm just a foreigner. I just
Mm,
feel like I'm just working, and I think I've met people from everywhere. I've talked here on this podcast with people from everywhere, and I think just there are two kind of people: cool people and jerks. And so
okay, got it.
but my parents and my my parents were telling me that when I was a kid, that you need to be more focused and more grinding harder, because you won't have the same opportunities as
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Italians, for
I think
example.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way I see sometimes, and I feel like it gets in the way because sometimes I probably shouldn't be thinking that way, and then but this sort of mind gets in the way, and it blocks so much. It blocks creativity. It blocks the way you kind of flow through life and stuff like that. But yeah,
I don't know. I think it depends on the country. I think that, for example, Italy was like, I don't know, people in some like I've heard this theory, like peach people and nuts people. So nuts people are hard on the outside but soft inside,
yeah,
like the Germans. It's very hard to get to be a friend with a German, but actually there is also a little bit of struggle before they call you a friend. They call you like an acquaintance, like
oh
people.
yeah,
And then when you're friends for life. That means maybe you won't chat every day, but if you in a situation of emergency, you gonna can
you know
rely.
who to call. Yeah, okay, got it.
And in Italy, everybody are like very friendly on the outside, like they're very soft, and they're like, whatever, let's chill together. And then from one day to the other, they might just completely disappear. So
Got
uh,
it.
so I think Italy, it's you have to be more aware that lots of the things that you say or you get told, it's not
He
what
actually meant right.
yeah. So I
Mm,
mean, I'm just here generalizing very much. Of course, not everybody are like this,
yeah,
uh,
obviously, yeah,
but the general culture is a little bit more take it easy, like. And
got
here,
it.
but I think the best and the worst. I was in England once, in London. So I
Okay,
guess I guess when the pandemic gets a little bit better, I can come and visit back, because now
Oh, you should,
I've,
mate. Yeah.
I've had so many people on the podcast from London, so I need to come for at least a week and
Oh, yeah.
meet you all
Definitely.
guys.
Definitely.
But I don't know, England. Even I was there for 5 days, and I felt so like aristocratic. Everything when
Mm.
you're downtown London, everything is like the palace and
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
yeah, and but we didn't manage to meet even one person who was from London. Even the British people which we met weren't from London. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I was really thinking, how are they gonna manage this whole thing with the Brexit? Because this city, it's not English at all. Like
So true.
it's and but also, for example, London. I what I didn't like about London is that if you don't have a really good job there, you're gonna need to end up living
Oh,
somewhere in the suburbs, and you're gonna end up traveling a lot with the
oh yeah.
public transportation and everything. It's expensive. Also a struggle.
It's crazy, man. When we first moved down here, um, we were just shocked. Like, rents, for instance, it instantly doubled. What you paid in Liverpool to live in town, to live in a city centre, to anywhere in London, it doesn't even compare. It is crazy. If you don't have a good job, you're probably gonna have to live, as you said, in the suburbs or house shares and stuff like that. Not that it is a problem, because it's kind of the way it is around here. But yeah, it is expensive. You have to sort of understand how it works, how to save, things like that. A lot of people cycle to work. A lot of people, I don't know, do all that kind of stuff to save bits here and there. So yeah, it is a crazy place in terms of like prices and stuff. But at the same time, it's just so full of opportunities. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of people trying new things, and if you get to know the people, if you get your networking going, you can do well. You can sort of get by quite nicely. So, and that's the thing that I try to focus. Like I think I'm okay. I'm good at what I do, but I'm good with relationships. I enjoy creating relationships, because I know the value of it. Like, and sometimes you expand your network might not help right now, but like 2 years down the line, someone will know you. Someone will know someone who needs you and stuff like that. So to sum it up, I ramble a lot, but to sum it up, basically, it is expensive, but there is opportunities. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I know a lot I told you also in the university afterwards, I had so many other university mates which were so much more talented or had better grades or uh, would understand something way more easier. But then you need to, have also sort of your feeling as a person. Like, for instance, I think that, there are so many people which had better grades than me in school. They're probably now working for um, a way less interesting projects for
Yeah.
way less money, because you need to immigrating. It's also getting out of your comfort zone. Like, you don't see
Oh,
your
totally.
family.
Yeah.
You don't, like, you have the benefits of getting maybe better money, feel more accomplished because you do cooler projects. But also, for example, in this pandemic, you couldn't meet your family.
Oh no.
I haven't met my family since 2019 or 2020, like the January 2020. So now it's more than a year.
Yeah, same actually.
And yeah. So it has its pros and cons. But how did you so we were at the moment where you studied a couple of years in the university in
Oh god,
Brazil?
yeah. We went.
No, it's okay. That's everything about the podcast also goes sideways. I like that.
Brilliant.
And how did you come back to Liverpool? You applied after, like,
Yeah.
during university?
So when it's a weird story. When I got back to Brazil, I went back to my old job because I was out of money, like literally, and I worked there for like 3 months. Couldn't stand it. And then someone I knew wanted to do a 3D company in a different town, he's like, dude, I'm going to invest in it. You're going to run it, blah, blah, blah. I was young and very stupid. So I moved there and I lived in a hotel for 6 months, in a very weird hotel for 6 months. And I just realized the guy didn't want to do anything. He was just, I don't know what he wanted. So got back to town. Went on to study product design, as I told you, because I was a bit lost. But I still had my CVs from the Dublin Times in English and portfolio all in English. I was like, I'm going to start sending these around to see what happens. And it was funny. I had a call from Dutch designer Marcel Wonders. I don't know if you know him. No. They were looking for a visualizer, and they're like, hey, we really like your stuff. We wanted to get in touch with you. So they called me and they said, like, we already checked on visas. And I was like, holy shit. We just, let's do an interview. So I booked the interview and I was so nervous. I didn't pick up the Skype call. I just, rejected it. And they said, like, sorry, you lost your spot, blah, blah, blah. And then I got an email from Uniform, this company Uniform in Liverpool, and they're looking for a senior CG artist. And they wanted to do the interview. So I was like, let's just do it. If they don't like me, if my English is bad, like, no one's going to ever know. So they did like me. and I was offered actually a junior position back in the day, because they said, like, look, your stuff's good. Your photography, they really like my photography. I think probably more than my CG work back in the day. But you need to work on the CG skills. And we think, it'd be a good opportunity for you to grow in the studio. So, yeah, sure enough, a month and a half later, 2 months later, I was just flying to Liverpool. We got the visa sorted. They helped a lot with the visas and literally trying to, get me to Liverpool. They're very, very helpful. So, yeah, so that's how I kind of ended up in Liverpool. It was funny because I was dating my girlfriend, now my wife, back in the day. I didn't even tell her, like, hey, I applied for a few jobs across the globe and I'm flying to Liverpool pretty soon. So crazy times, but it was beautiful. Yeah, it was really nice.
What do you think that made you have this job? Do you think that you were already way more talented than local people in England? Or because, I was considering doing something similar with the US before the pandemic, but it's also, it's when it's across continents, it's sometimes companies are just like, yeah, dude, like, we have the same guys here, we can pick someone from here. What do you think made you have the job?
Oh God, I don't really know actually why. I don't really know why they were looking abroad, because a lot of people, they do look abroad. So maybe there is a bit of a scarcity of art and artists around here. Yeah, I don't know. To be quite honest, my visa was actually a shortage occupation, which I believe it means there's a shortage. There's a scarcity of that sort of art. Why I got hired definitely wasn't because of my CGI skills. I'm fairly confident, and I think I've asked some of the directors back in the day, but Nick, the main directors, I think he mentioned it was a question of like personality, and I could fit within the team. Apparently, the fact that I lived in Dublin helped, because it's a similar city. In fact, there's a lot of Irish in Liverpool, and the photography, because I had photography skills. Coming from BMX, again, you kind of learn photography, and I was very interested in it. And, for people getting CGI, that's one of the main things to have. If you understand photography, you know how to convey things from reality and sort of look at things with a different eye, sort of thing. So that's the reason why I got, because I don't know how it works around here, how people get taught around here in terms of, you learn how to model, you learn how to create a scene, or I don't know, whatever, in 3D. But then the artistic side kind of comes in and affects a lot, apparently. So
I can tell you that everyone is different also, because I have now some people from your industry, and every single person was with different background and different way of approaching things. So I think that also a lot of the people who listen to this, when they work in this field, they enjoy that I'm not part of it, because I have sort of a side view. I really don't care. I think it's just a very funny community because you're way more like a community. It's like, it's like a little bit like BMX community, I guess, because
Oh yeah.
everybody, do BMX, and then you feel connected, and you all guys do some images or graphic art, and then you are like, oh, we do the same stuff. So we are very much a community. But what was exactly this job you got in Liverpool? What you needed to do? Like it
I
was
was. Oh, sorry.
general like agency for.
Yeah, so uniforms, and it's kind of design agency. So they had all sorts of things. They had, well, they have to this day, obviously, the CG team, which folks mostly on architecture visualization. And they have a brand team. They have a digital team. They have a film team, a strategy team as well. And the job was literally to work in the ArcViz sort of team.
Mm.
But for me, it was perfect because the other things that the agency did was so fascinating. The stuff they were working on was, I don't know, it was just incredibly inspiring all the time. So I kind of had my head, I was just doing a bit of CG, and then if I could help with the design team or something, I would help with them. So yeah, but mostly architecture visualization. So they work with incredible clients all across the globe. So it's really good.
But were they like project where they like would connect different disciplines together? I can imagine like doing design and then ArcViz and then maybe brand strategy for the same
Yeah,
company would build that. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. So they kind of, I think they could cover the whole thing. Like if someone needed, to brand a product and do different collateral for it, like film, animation, and stuff like that. That's a company that can, they can take it all in.
And how did you manage to reconnect with your girlfriend then? Like when you.
Oh man, that was tough because I think we were dating just under a year when I moved to Liverpool, and I just tell her like, look, I don't want to break up because she's amazing, and we're just trying to find solutions, right? Because we're so young and we're like, we can't get married right now. So she moved to Dublin actually 6 months later, which again, easy to get a visa, and she could work. And if you ever flew from Dublin to Liverpool, it's a 25-minute flight. It's insane, so quick. So she was living there for 1 year, which wasn't very good for her, to be quite honest. Like, house share and all that kind of stuff. It just wasn't ideal. She lived there for a year. We'll see each other 3 times or something a month. And then she moved back to Brazil in end of 2015, something. We stayed apart for another year, 2 years and a half, which was insane. It was difficult. She was in Brazil in 2016 studying. And I was in Liverpool. We saw each other that year like just once. It was crazy because flights are expensive. As a junior artist, you don't make that much money, obviously. So you couldn't like, hey, come to see me. I'll go see you. Blah blah blah. That didn't really happen. And then in 2017 we got married, and end of 2017 she moved to Liverpool actually. So it was crazy. It was crazy few years that we tell people, they're like, what, you stayed apart for all that time? But it worked well. We're married now and stuff. And yeah, that's kind of how it happened. It's crazy times.
Yeah, I'm asking because I told you, not personally, but for example, my family had similar situations. So I think nowadays it's getting more and more common. And
Yeah.
for after how long did you leave that agency and move to London, and what was the reason to do that?
So I moved to London in 2018. 2019, early 2019. But the whole idea was I was always scared of living in a big city, right? Because my town back home is like 300, 400,000 people. Liverpool was about the same. And then as you start coming down to London, either because of a project or events, you kind of get inspired. And I went to off. Do you know the event Off Fest? They call it. There's Off Barcelona. There's Off, I don't know, whatever. And there is a festival, design festival called Off Fest or something. I don't know. And in 2017, the Off London was taking place, and I visited.
What is it about?
it's design. It's just design conference, but like in big scale, beautiful stuff. And I saw so many amazing talks on that event. But there was one in particular that kind of triggered that feeling. So I saw these guys. There's a company called Future Deluxe here in London. They do a lot of commercials and animation stuff like that. It's really, really good. And one of the founders said like it was tough at the beginning in London, but uh, if it wasn't for this place, we wouldn't be what we are right now. And I remember him saying at the end like, "London, you beast, we salute you," or something like that, which was amazing. And I was like, "Holy shit, yeah, maybe there's a bit of opportunity going on in here." And Tani, my wife, she's actually a model, so she was on that weekend. She's just walking by. People like would talk to her like, "Hey, are you a model?" And she was like, "Oh, this guy spoke to me on the tube, on the subway, and here's my agency, blah blah." And we're like, okay, maybe there is more opportunities for her in here as well. So end of 2018, got in touch with the Tom Dixon team, and they're looking for someone to do the visualization, right, for the company, and it just fit so perfectly with what I was sort of messing around back in the day. So not only architecture visualization, but like product visualization and animations and all that kind of stuff. And everything turned out really well. They were like, "Hey, we want you here. We think you're a great fit for the team. And you're going to work directly with the interior design team and the marketing team and the product team," which was absolutely amazing. And that's how we decided to make the move. So early 2019, I got my visa, because that's one of the things that some people don't know. It's like, if you come to work for a company, you're locked to that company, and you can only work for someone else if the other company gets you a visa to work for them, right? And they were they're very aware of it, because Tom hires a lot of immigrants and stuff, because his family is also immigrant. And that's kind of how it happened. So early 2019, we moved here. And I don't know, it was crazy, man, because the house we moved to didn't even have an address. It was insane, because that happens quite a lot in London, apparently. But, shit was happening, but we were so stoked to be here, so excited, and, see new places, new buildings and things like that, new architecture, new people, and people from everywhere and stuff. I don't know. I just remember calling my family back in the day, and it's like, they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's like, "Oh," I just said, like, "We're so fucked. Everything's going down wrong. We can't even get electricity in our house because there wasn't an address on the space." But we were just happy. I remember we just being like really excited, to see what was going to happen. So that's kind of how it happened.
And then you started to work for these other guys.
Yeah. So
or you already decided you.
No, to be honest, Georgie, like the long term plan was always to go on my own. I had this dream of like having my own company, because I got some good friends who are quite entrepreneurial back home. I just couldn't get it right. I just couldn't understand what I needed to do. But back in the day, it was like, I'm going to work for them now. And to be fairly honest, like working for Tom and the team, it's just a great name to have, on your CV and your connections and stuff. Just being fairly honest here, like it makes a lot of sense. So I started working for them in March 2019. So I got in, and we hit it off like, running quickly, because Milan 2019 happened the design week in Milan, and we needed content, animations and stuff for them already, for the new products launching and stuff. So it was crazy time, but I thought I was going to work in the interior design team straight away, and they're like, "Hey, actually, let's put it on hold. Let's do some animations and stuff." So yeah, I worked for them straight away. Yeah.
But you were always like designer, or you were also like, I don't know, team leader. What kind of roles did you have? Did you have any experience by like leading others of your team,
Not
or
really. It was back at uniform. I left the company as a midweight CG artist. So I think I led a couple of projects, which I'm still quite proud of, to be fairly honest. And on those projects, I would lead, I don't know, like a couple of junior artists or something like that, but nothing, big, right? Not like a art director or creative director or something like that. And when I joined the company, I joined Tom Dixon, I was the only, visualizer that there wasn't anyone else. This was actually a a function that they wanted to bring for the studio. So I would work with external companies and sort of, help them out when we working, which is very few cases. But I wasn't leading anyone. I was literally taking the content, taking the design from the either designers or interior designers, or getting the information from marketing team, and actually producing the content. So that's kind of how it happened.
and how long? So you stayed there. You went there beginning of 2019. So I suppose like it lasted 1 year before the pandemic started. I don't know. I think in UK you got really aware a little bit later, because in Italy was starting February, then here kicked in March
Yeah,
was the first lockdown, and in the UK you had like Boris Johnson being like, we're gonna see how it goes. We're gonna go for herd immunity, and then after a month or so you also lock down. So at what point you decide, oh, okay, now or never, I'm gonna just go
time to
solo?
go. When it happened, I was in Brazil actually when things were getting bad around here. We went to Brazil in February. We got back, and it was late February, and a week later I was working from home already. And then I was just like, what's next? Because by then, in December 2019, I've got my indefinite leave to remain, which is the visa that allows me to do whatever I want, kind of thing. Not citizenship, but really good visa. Yeah. And then I think it was mid 2020. I was working from home, working for Tom Dixon, and then I realized there was a few opportunities that was kind of, um, sort of coming up, and I realized, well, if I want to take these opportunities, I can't work for them, because otherwise some things, won't get delivered, right? So in May 2020, I just decided to go, like 2 weeks. There was a job that would come in from a friend. He was like, hey, we're doing animation. We need someone to do a film for it, edit the film and stuff like that. Maybe this is the opportunity that you can, I'm not going to put names on the table here, but like, maybe this is the opportunity that you can take to go on your own, he said, this friend. And I was like, okay. I spoke to my wife. I was like, look, we got a 6-month runway, right? Because one of the other things is, like, when you live in the UK and you're paying for visas and shit like that, you can't save much money. And if you want to go visit your friends and your family back home, dude, it's £1,000 ticket, things like that. So we've always very cautious with the money and the way we spend the money, but we didn't save that much. So,
But
so
8 months sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's okay, but you always, again, might be the immigrant mind once again, like literally on the back of your mind going, you're gonna get fucked. But we decided, let's give this a go. Let's take the risk. And in worst case scenario, I could find another job, hopefully. So that was it. We made the decision, and I told the team I wanted to leave and stuff. They said, yeah, no, that's kind of expected, because they sort of believed in me, one of the directors particularly. And yeah, I left the company in June 2020, and already, hit the ground running with this job, this film that I was doing with this friend, which is really helpful. And again, I didn't mention that, but there wasn't much money involved on that project as well. But I was like, maybe this is the chance, maybe this is the push that I needed to, to literally like go and do it. And it was brilliant, because I left I left Tom Dixon, which is an amazing company. I developed a good relationship with the designers and the people there. On the day after, I got an email to do a job for them already. So that was I was like, I felt so special, man. It was amazing. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of how it started. I didn't really know what to do at the beginning. I was like, okay, I need to get my Instagram going. I need to get social media, which I'm usually good at. Sometimes even annoyingly sort of good and like keeping things up to date. It's like people get like, dude, you just too much out there, posting too much, blah blah blah. Yeah, but that's kind of how it happened. And then people started to realize I wasn't working for them anymore. They're like, hey, we got some freelance going on here. If you need any work, just let us know. We really want to work with you. And I think I was good enough to make good relationships and good connections before leaving the company as well, which really, really helped. So yeah, so that's kind of how it started to happen.
But I'm curious how much it took you to, like, you took some, you got contacted for some projects, so you weren't like jumping out of the blue into nothing. But still, like, from the moment you thought, okay, I'm gonna go freelance, to the moment where you were actively ready doing everything, it was put in place. How long did it take you, and what were the challenges? Because I can imagine you needed to open a company in England, something like that.
Yeah,
You needed to get softwares,
yeah,
figure out your accountancy for tax return. So, I mean, going freelance sounds always very, very sexy, like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go freelance," but like, you have a lot of things on the side, which
yeah,
you have a website which looks sick, but you need to get that done. All the social media material you put out there
yeah, yeah,
also need to get done. So how long did it take you to get to the level where you are? Because it's just a year almost. So
yeah. So how did that happen? Basically, for the business side of things, I didn't really know much in terms of like accounts, taxes, and stuff like that. So I started asking people around, like, what should I do? I had a good friend back in Liverpool, which had a business already, and I was like, hey, do I open a company? Do I go sole trader? Because there's that difference as well, right? So right now I'm registered as a sole trader, not as a company, for instance. Because you have to, not that you have to, but if you can hit a certain number for business, you register differently. So that's kind of how it happened. Uh, and I'm still at that point, which I'm probably going to be changing soon to be a business and not a sole trader. The other thing, the website, I actually designed myself. I wanted to do a Squarespace website, which a lot of people do that, right? They go. I actually had a call this morning. Someone just started a business. Hey, yeah, I'm going to do a Squarespace. Like, yeah, I'll just do it because it's so much work to do yourself. And again, connections. So one of my really good friends here in London, he actually was very proactive. Like, hey, John, I just wanted to help you with your website. Do you want to design and I'll do the back end? And I was like, oh, that's amazing, mate. So he did that way. In terms of software, he was quite lucky because Max, for instance, went into that rental mode last year, which was really helpful. I had some connections at Chaos Group, the guys who do V-Ray, who really helped as well with V-Ray, which was the render software that I was using. We were already paying for like Adobe packages because we use so much every day. We're like, my wife and I, like, honestly, I think we prefer to pay this than Netflix or something because we use like literally every single day. It's amazing. But that's kind of how it happened. And then in terms of social media, obviously, when you work for different companies and when you work for companies before you do your own, unless you have a ton of personal work, you ask them if you can use some of that work that you produce when you're working with them. So they're very kind, they're very helpful in letting me use the work, obviously crediting them as they own the copyrights for that. But that's kind of it started, going out there. Basically, I was always very active on like Instagram and like LinkedIn, Facebook, Behance, Twitter mostly now, basically. But that really helped. That sort of being socially active. It was incredible. I'm not I'm not the best at that, but I try to do a good job with it. And then, yeah, just trying to promote myself as, people say is a bit egocentric, egotistical, like doing that kind of stuff. But when you do that, it happens, right? Things start to happen because otherwise you won't get seen, obviously. So I was always very active on that and trying to keep that up to date.
I see. But also, like with 3ds Max, I figured out a couple of episodes ago, I talked to this guy. He's called Jakub Sobieszewski. He's Polish and he lives in Berlin, also work in your field as a freelancer. And that he explained to me, which I think is something very useful for people who want to start being, freelancers in that field, is that now also Autodesk offers this indie software,
Yeah.
indie license, which is, I mean, if you're starting slowly, it's pretty good. So that sounds interesting. I mean, actually, now when you were saying this story, it's funny because if you look, this podcast started exactly in May 2020, like your company. So we started together. Just this is not a business yet. It's just a side passion,
Oh wow! Okay.
Maybe it's gonna become a business. Who knows? But for now, it's a side passion. And
the whole podcast industry is crazy right now, right?
I mean, yes, but it's hard, man. It's like it's something very, very hard because basically you're in the industry of media, So the only product that you can offer, it's like really numbers. Like if you have high numbers, you can sell that to companies. The other way to monetize something like this is to
sponsors.
The sponsor will be companies which will for the numbers, and the other way would be to sell something yourself or to have a Patreon, something like that, where people say, okay, I really like this show, I'm gonna give them some money. I think the Patreon thing, it's kind of nice because it's more like putting, like the street artists who put like a hat on the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Who wants to know. So so I think this is, but also there you need numbers to be really profitable. So
definitely,
if you want to do it, you need to do it because you like it, or some. For example, I had also Federico Biancullo. He's a CG artist from Italy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the big picture, right?
Big picture, picture, and he started something about archivists.
Yeah, he's brilliant. I listen all the time, actually.
So he does it something like a promotion for his own, knowledge, company, skills. So there is. I did it because I really like podcasts, and because I like to, I'm like.
What's your favorite, Georgi?
What?
What's your favorite? Yeah.
Of course, the Joe Rogan Experience.
So good, man.
I love that they talk so much shit on that podcast, and it's very entertaining. And I think that this is the future of, like, I mean, when you listen now to TV or to traditional media, it's, I don't know, it's out of date. Like the whole format. It's attractive to people who already consume it, but. Like here it's so much like me doing it, it's so much nicer because you don't have like somebody telling you what to say, what not to say, who to invite. You don't have like, oh, now we ran out of time, or now we put the commercial, or stuff like that. So I think that it's a slow process, but I think in the next 20 years traditional media will get killed by different services. For example, also Netflix. Now we see in the sports world, we have the Zone, which is basically a Netflix for sports. And the Zone is like yesterday there was big news in Italy. They bought all the rights for the Serie A. So basically it's an online platform like Netflix. You pay, I think, 14 euros a month, and then you watch all the sports events they show.
That's quite clever, actually.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, for them it's a little harder because the things they need to broadcast are live, so maybe the connection sometimes is not perfect. But so
that's brilliant.
But I mean, I think it's nice to my main goal was like to give back something that I haven't had. So I managed somehow to get here and to get a job, which, I mean, it's nothing, I'm not a astronomical
Mm.
engineer or something like that. It's a job that I think for Germany is quite regular, but it's nothing something I don't take it for granted or for given, because from where it started, it wasn't obvious that I'm gonna get to be at where I am, and I guess it was the same for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's nice to have this platform to tell stories as yours or as other people, so that other people who are listening, no matter which position they are, whether they're working already, they want to go freelance, or they're still studying, or so they
Yeah.
have, direct access, which it's you can go to every conference or open day for university, or you can go to whatever's keynote, but it's not going to be like we do it here, like
Mm.
where I just talk to you about stuff that nobody talks about, because nobody talks about how you pay the rent while
Oh, yeah.
doing,
Details, right?
yeah, like what I have this practical side from my family, that
I
you
love it,
have
man.
to
I love it.
study,
Yeah.
but you have to pay your rents, you have to
Yeah.
live, you're like, and I think this is something that it's really stronger in people who come from not first world countries,
Yeah.
let's say like this, because it's always very nice to talk about how educated you need to be, and you need to do it for your passion, and you need to
Yeah.
do it for a value, but you need to pay the bills too. So
Yeah. No, exactly. I know what you mean. And I, I like those things because I've always thought like you hear all these amazing, romantic entrepreneur stories and things like that. And I like the details. I like to, well, but if you did this, how did that happen? Things like that, right? The practical side of things, I suppose. But yeah.
yeah, like that's to go back to the beginning when we were talking about videography. It's
Mm.
like when you see these videos, for example, of BMX riders, and you think that's so cool, I want to do the same, and then you go yourself on a skateboard, and the skateboard looks differently because it's not
Yeah.
elaborated in some post-production lighting, and you start crashing against the ground, and you're like, oh, that's not cool, it's not
No,
like the video.
it hurts.
So yeah, so I'm trying to show the backstage of all of you guys,
Yeah. 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 Definitely.
because when even like social media, like all social media are made to be cool, they don't
Mm.
know, I'm gonna, like, also of course my personal, like my personal account for this podcast is also made, to look cool, to look
Yeah.
sexy for people, but it's not the reality, like, and it's interesting to to get the real story behind people. I think
Definitely.
I loved your story because there is so much on the side, like your
Mm.
girlfriend, like you didn't finish your education because that wasn't the case for you, and that's fine. I think that's nice to hear, and it's
Yeah.
nice, inspiring to hear. And what is your workflow right now? What kind of things you do and how you do them? And
Uh, oof. Right now it's mental. So, for instance, the past few weeks, delivered a whole bunch of different projects. In terms of workflow, you mean like software wise, or what exactly you mean?
yeah, in general, like software wise or creative wise, like it doesn't need to be
Mm.
software. Like I don't know what kind of projects you do and how do you
Yeah.
approach them. Because I mean, honestly, I'm trying to, for example, personally, I'm trying to slowly make this podcast video too. Like
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
working on it, but it's something that it doesn't get like this in a click.
No. Hmm.
And man, like I don't know how to approach video, for example. Like how
Right.
do you film stuff? Like when you film, like with your phone, just walk around and film. But if you
Yeah.
to film something, so how do you approach also from the concept to the realization of what you do?
Hmm. So usually, well, to be quite honest, it varies a lot. It varies from project to project, client to client as well. Um, so right now, I work with a series of different projects, ranging from traditional, architecture visualization, stuff that I usually do, but I am more and more navigating towards like product animations and marketing material for, I don't know, either a product company or fashion companies as well, doing creative sort of work. But all of them, will involve CGI and image making or filmmaking or whatever. And the workflow for these projects, it depends. Sometimes a company comes with an idea in mind. Sometimes a company comes with a, very structured storyboard in line. And sometimes they come to you and say, we like your style. Can you get something for this product or for this project or whatever? So again, it varies. It depends from project to project. But what I usually like to do is develop a little bit of a storyboard to people that actually involves 3D already. There is no hand drawing and stuff like that, because it's so much easier to jump in 3D if we have a model or something from them and just create on top of that. And with some companies, what I'm doing right now, because they come and say, like, we like your style. Can you get this for that? And I go, yeah. If that's the case, we jump into an animatic straight away. So the people see movement on the screen and the people see sounds going on and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, nothing's very refined, but you get a good sense of what's going on, basically. And one of the things that's been happening quite a lot, actually, is I'm very into music. A lot of people are into music, but whoever knows me knows how much I really like hip hop and stuff like that. So I try to involve the sort of harmony and beats and stuff like that into the films, into the animations, for instance, because not only gives a bit of extra immersion to the film, but has that commercial value elevated a little bit, which is quite good. That's something I've been exploring a lot more these days. So yeah, there isn't really a workflow, because it varies from project to project, and it may sound a little bit dumb, because if you're trying to grow a business, you need that sort of structure in a way, which I do have, like the sort of back end where things are, how things go, how things are built together, are really important. But when it comes to the creative, and depending on the brief, we try to go loose a little bit of that, to be fairly honest. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. Sorry, I was just trying to see if there's anything else.
But what kind of services you offer all over? Because I mean, from your website, it's it doesn't say your website is jformento.com, and it doesn't say if you go to, for example, work, and you open work, of course there is Archiviz, but it's not only Archiviz. It's you have some sort of animation, so you have definitely some images which are not for you have some animated text,
motion graphics and stuff, right?
Some motion graphics, yeah. And then you go to your about page, and it says a lot of things, not only Archivist. It says, you've worked with you've worked on projects which are for very important companies, but
yeah, I see what you mean. I think. Sorry.
What kind of projects can you do? For example, if let's say I did a product, can I call you and tell you, come and do photographic session? Can I call you to do some brand manual, something like that?
Yeah.
What kind of things you do?
I think right now, most of my work is CGI, right? And that will include architecture, product, design, art as well. I've worked with a few artists around London that they wanted to give life to certain, sculptures and, collectible pieces and stuff like that. If you call me, that's because it's probably my work somehow, and you wanted to get a little bit of that into whatever you're trying to do. Right now, I'm working on a film, for instance, right? I'm editing a whole film for an energy company, which is quite exciting, because it doesn't involve any CGI, but they like the look in some of these things, and they say hey, can you do that for a film? Yeah, let's give it a go. So that's kind of how it happened. It's this is going to sound so arrogant, but it's I'm trying to fit an entire agency in one person, kind of thing. And obviously when things go a little bit beyond control, I get people to help. I never work by myself. Like 90% of the projects, I'll have like 2 people helping me out because I can't do it by myself. And these people, they come in to fit certain skills that I either struggle a little bit with, or that I rather have them do because they do better than I do. So that's kind of how it works. When I first started this whole the whole J Formento thing, I thought, is this going to be a business? Is this going to be me? I didn't really know, to be fairly honest. And I've always wanted to be a business, like, large scale and stuff like that. Because you listen to all these podcasts and stuff, and you go, oh my God, you got to escalate this or whatever. And now I feel like maybe you don't need that much. There's a company here in London. I saw an interview with them, and they said, like, we are everyone that we hire is a 1.5 man, a 1.5 person, sorry. Which means like they can do this very well, but they also can do this, and that if we need that. And I find that quite interesting in a way, because usually when you get that type of artists and creators, they must be really fucking good. So, they can complement these other roles as well. So I try to blend in, with the project that I have at hand. When I was at Tom Dixon, one of my directors, he told me, like, I just want you to, that was his words. I want you to bifurcate. I can't even spell that right. Your mind, like, literally split in two. Because when I need you for architecture projects, your architecture project mind clicks in. But when we go into marketing and trying to market our product, I need your mind to literally go a different, way, and not be so rigid or so, I don't know, glamorous maybe, but the products were glamorous. But there was, I don't know, that's the kind of thing I try to blend in within the project. So I'm working on a VR project right now with a few different architects from all across the globe. And when I work with them, I know how my mind now needs to be in terms of understanding their language and what they're trying to say and trying to do with their particular project. I can't tell much about the project itself, but that's how I see. But then you're gonna work with a fashion brand or something like that. It's a completely different mindset. You just need to let some of the things they used to go so you can fit to their project. And it's a struggle. Like from time to time, you go like, oh, why the hell am I doing this? I could just be doing, the architecture visualization stuff, which I'm so comfortable doing, which I did for so many years. But you got the artist mind. They're like, hey, you can do this other amazing stuff as well.
How did you manage to price your project? Because you also say you collaborate with other freelancers, I guess, or other people that And of course, I can imagine that one thing that you didn't know at all with your work experience was this business side of how much money you will need to be paid for this project for also to be profitable and efficient. And I don't know, maybe you have also get some. Did you get maybe some advices also from Fabio, because
I was
also know each other?
I was going to touch on that point. So the pricing side of things, I learned throughout the years, right? You see all these people, you see how they do business, you see how much things cost roughly, and obviously it varies from company to company. Some companies that they have tremendous value and prices go up quite quickly, and you start to learn, on those terms. And then obviously the conferences and talking to people in networking events and stuff like that, you get to learn. So I kind of have a sort of measurement. I'm obviously a one-man band kind of thing. But when I come to price, I usually price a project per project. I don't charge like an hourly rate or a daily rate, because I don't really believe in that. Because, something might happen. You can say, well, I'm going to take this long. I'm actually going to do that much or whatever, or things like that. And then when I get people to work with, I usually ask them like, hey, we got this project. I need this, and that. What's going to cost? How long is going to take? And you price that up onto the final, to the final quote kind of thing. Fabio and I had some really good talks over the phone in terms of pricing and things like that, which was quite helpful. And then I had people around me all the time, like sort of advising, in terms of like numbers, what the industry is charging, how much things cost, and things like that. But the value varies quite a lot from company to company, because every company, every artist is different, and they have a whole lot of set of values that some of them are quite unique. They might be like a famous artist on social media, and that instantly increases their price because a brand wants to work with them and things like that. But that's about that.
Yeah, I think that, as I said, nowadays, social media, it's important to have numbers, because numbers means exposure. And
one thing I learned, Georgie, like from seeing these other big companies and big names around here, like they said, people always like to work with a little bit of a famous person or something, or famous company, entity. I found that quite interesting, because that, whether you like it or not, that increases value, automatically. So
yes. I mean, yeah, like it's very important, and people underestimated this side of the whole thing, because it's important to have the numbers, because I mean, it's not crucial, but it's still
no, definitely not. No,
Like,
I know people. They go like, dude, like they told me like, don't focus too much on the numbers. Don't forget to focus on the crafts and stuff. And I try to measure that quite well.
Yeah. But in your case, you're selling a product. So the most important thing is that no matter how famous you are, the images or the videos or your output, it's the quality that the client needs. I'm way more aware of numbers, because literally numbers would be, it's what it is about. Like the podcast about numbers. Like if you have a lot of followers, people gonna come on the podcast because they want to get exposure. You can get more famous people, because they will be also more impressed and more willing to spend their time to get the exposure they want to. And this is because some people might think, oh, for the followers, they're so stupid. But it's not for the followers itself. It's just also because if you have bigger exposure, you can do more interesting things also, because you will arrive to more people, and among those people there will be more interesting people, and so on. So it is what it is nowadays. It's really like it works like that. So, but have you also spent some money on like Facebook ads and stuff like that to
I did for like testing, because end of 2020 I was like, I had some time and I was thinking, let's see what happens in here. So I did spend some money on, I think it was like Instagram ads and Facebook. No, not Facebook, because I barely use Facebook, but I knew how valuable it was for Instagram. So I did testing, and a lot of people came to ask like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Shouldn't be doing this. They just want your money, blah, blah, blah. Truth be told, some of them paid off. Some people that they saw the projects, they reached out afterwards. They're like, hey, like your work. We've got this going on. Can you do a quote for us and things like that? And I think one of my biggest projects last year actually happened because of that. I'm not saying that it was literally because of Instagram ads or whatever, but he reached some people that I didn't expect he would reach. And then we did the project, and it was one of my biggest projects. So I don't know if it works. I had a chat with a friend a while back, and he said like, now you're going to have to pay for every single post that you do, right? Because they smell your blood and they wanted more, right? So I kind of stopped doing, and then this is going to be a bit controversial to what we just said, but like one of my latest projects posted on Instagram, quite colorful, nice project, drove a lot of attention. It was actually the biggest, post that I had. And I was like, okay, that's quite interesting. And then as I realized, maybe I shouldn't be even paying posts, but I should be focusing on more conceptual, beautiful work, that kind of gets into people's eyes more than just promoting a shitty image that I did a while back just to get the numbers going. Do you know what I mean? Because the work itself will bring those numbers, and I started to believe a little bit more on that sort of approach. But again, it varies. One of the things that I learned in almost a year by myself is like, dude, you got to do you, because every single thing that you do, it's going to be different if you replicate the same steps that someone else did. And I think that was my biggest lesson so far in the business. Like, you got to try things out, and you got to try to believe a little bit on those things that you're doing. And if they don't work, well, you just learn, move on, fuck it. That's the kind of thing, that's the kind of way that I'm taking things right now. It's like, let me do this. If I'm going to get a little bit judged, obviously, because that's the creative industry, right? And that's going to be what's going to be. If it works, fine, we'll try it again. If it doesn't, we'll change, the way we're doing things. So,
but I think that what personally I've learned from social media, which I was one of those people that I never had like personal dreams of becoming influencer or
I see what you mean.
big followership, or I've been also somebody that thinks it's very shallow, and I think I still think that social media in general can be very shallow depending what is the purpose to doing it. Like nowadays there is the classic business model for some sort of good looking girls, which would do like half naked pictures on Instagram, OnlyFans link, and then you go pay, and that's the business model, which is very shallow. But if you do it with a purpose for being creative and for being a business, it's what it teaches you, in my opinion, a lot. It's how to communicate with people, like how do you communicate yourself, because I started very much experimenting in the beginning, and then I have the fortune that now I'm not doing this alone. My girlfriend, she's a brand strategist, and she's really
helpful.
Yeah, she does some podcasts with me, and then she also does a lot of the background work that nobody sees. But yeah, to just set up a strategy, to set up your brand, to set up your tone, to define what is like what I'm gonna post. It's not about posting; it's about like what I'm gonna say with this. So I think it makes you kind of self-learn all these things that I probably guess you learn in schools for communications and PR and stuff like that. And I think that's also a value if you do it on a like in this is something that I think now I should have started doing this way before, like figure out to communicate this instead of some shallow things. Because you can get you a job one day, maybe as a PR for a company or manager for the communications of a company. So it's
definitely
it's always you can learn something new. So I think this is what I can get away from social media, from what I personally learned.
I think you have to learn how to navigate it as well, right? Because dude, you can go nuts in social media, honestly. And I've spoken to people, and you may get depressed just because of it, right? Because you think you're doing something wrong, but you potentially are not doing something wrong, and there's a whole bunch of other things going in the background of those platforms that don't really help you. It is a crazy thing to navigate, but it is essential at the same time.
Yes. I the only thing I've learned is that you shouldn't have expectations, because sometimes you post something and think, oh, this is so awesome, and then nobody even checks it. And then you post something that you didn't think is gonna be so much good, and then does well. And then I figure out that the best thing is to think what I'm gonna post for the others, like for other people, and what is the value that they gonna get it. Because man, I cannot get my friends to listen to this podcast. Like the people who are listening these things are not my personal friends. Are some people that have figured it out their own on their own and they're happy with it. So I think you have always to have the focus on what will other people perceive out of it, and that's it.
Definitely.
But I mean, I think we covered most of your story so far. Like
I think I spoke too much.
No. We had a little bit of a technical trouble, but now everything was fine. Before we wrap it up, I want to give you now the official platform to say where can people go and check visually what is your work, where is your work.
So if people want to check it out, if you guys spare a minute, jformento.com is one of them. But then I'm pretty much everywhere as J4Mento. If you go on Instagram, it's at J4Mento, Twitter, LinkedIn, which I'm probably most active there. Facebook's J4Mento Work, I think. And Behance, same thing, J4Mento. But yeah, it's so easy. Like if you go on Instagram or website, you get everything there, basically. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Georgi.
Yeah, I'll add everything in the episode notes or description. And thank you very much for participating one more time. And have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hey guys, thank you very much for listening to this episode. And before we go, I want to remind you that if you want to support this podcast and our show, you can do it by just subscribing to our monthly newsletter, where you're going to receive the best of every month. And you can follow our social media channels, which are Instagram at TCI Podcast and LinkedIn, the Creative Insider page. Thank you very much and have a good week.